Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Wolsak and Wynn spring launch. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Wolsak and Wynn spring launch for our fiction list for 2021. It's my pleasure to introduce the event tonight, and very shortly I'll be introducing our publisher, Noelle Allen. We're launching three wonderful books of fiction tonight, two novels and a collection of short story. Our first novel is The Medusa Deep by David Neely. After that, we're going to present Monster Child by Ryla Naibzada, and we'll be finishing our evening tonight with Radium Girl by Sofi Papamarko. As you'll see in the chat window, we're having a launch sale, and all of our titles that we're launching tonight will be 30% off until midnight this Saturday. And the link where you can buy those books is posted in the chat window right now. Before we get things started, I'm going to turn things over to Noelle Allen, who is going to tell you a little bit about where Wolsak and Wynn is located, and she will introduce our first reader for the evening. Noelle?
Thank you so much, Paul. So what I'd like to do when I start this evening is to give a land acknowledgement. A good friend of mine who is Indigenous said that the land acknowledgement is really the first place to start, but it is only the start of walking towards reconciliation, but it still should come before all things. So though this is a virtual launch, it's still good to acknowledge that Wolsak and Wynn is lucky to be located in the city of Hamilton, which is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our role as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. I'd also like to note that for those of you who may find this useful, we have enabled captioning for this event, and you can just turn on the captioning function. As you may have noticed on the slides that we're going through, we always like to acknowledge the generosity of our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Ontario Arts Council, and the Department of Canadian Heritage. Without their continued support, we would not be able to bring out the fabulous books that we do, and especially the books that we are so pleased to be launching today. So I'm going to quickly, well, not quickly, because really the publisher's the most boring part of this evening. It's the authors and their books that we really want to hear from. But our first reader this evening is David Neely, who'll be reading from his just released book, The Medusa Deep. The Medusa Deep follows up on his award-winning young adult novels, The Midnight Games. And these are fabulous books, and they came because David told me at one time that people in Hamilton needed a book to read on the bus. So I said, well then write me a book, David. And he did, and it's become this incredible series. And it's in this wonderfully rich and complex world, which is Hamilton, but it's a Hamilton that H.P. Lovecraft feels at home in and sometimes shows up in. And he has improvised with this wonderful world, always creating new and vibrant and sometimes, frankly, unsettling stories. So I'm going to let David tell you more about that. But first, I'm going to introduce David. So David Neely is the author of the novels The Midnight Games and Commander Zero, as well as the international bestseller Chainsaws, A History, and the acclaimed jazz books The Battle of the Five Spot and Stopping Time, which he wrote with the jazz pianist Paul Bley. In 2016, the Hamilton Arts Council awarded The Midnight Games the Carrie Schooley Award, which is the book that we give out each year to the book that best conveys the spirit of the city of Hamilton. Originally from British Columbia, David has lived in BC and Ontario, but currently and has for a long time now resided in Hamilton with his wife, Maureen, really, really close to Ivor Wynn Stadium. And I'm going to turn it over to David now. David?
Hi, I think David may have had some technical difficulties. He seems to have disappeared from our list right now. So perhaps we should invite Rahela to read first.
Maybe we'll switch it. He's been adopted by Cthulhu, Gary. Yes, that sounds like it could have happened. Perhaps, okay, let's flip it back. Paul, would you like to take a moment to introduce Ryla then? And we'll hope that David can reconnect.
Sure. Welcome back, everybody. So I'm Paul Vermeer, Senior Editor of Wolsak and Wynn. And there's all of our books tonight have wonder and magic at their core. As you can see, David Neely has just done a disappearing act in keeping with our theme tonight. So I'll introduce you to a different kind of magic. I first read Monster Child by Ryla Naibzada one day when we were having a staff meeting at Wolsak and Wynn, and I found it in the mailbox. It had just been delivered as a submission, and I started reading it immediately, and I knew that I wanted to work with Ryla and bring this book to your attention. And so the journey has brought us here tonight, where we are now launching this book. And Monster Child is the story of an Afghani-Canadian family dealing with culture shock, dealing with racism in their community, dealing with wanting to become and remain Canadian whilst not forgetting where they came from and what their roots are. And for their children who were born in Canada, navigating an even shakier tightrope of identity. And it's also a celebration of culture and of family and of love and of difficulty. It's a beautiful book, and it's full of wonder. And I can't wait for you to hear Ryla Naibzada read from it. So we'll turn it over to Ryla right now, who will read from Monster Child.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Noel, and everyone at Wolsak and Wynn. Thank you for all your support. So I'm going to read from two different passages today. And the first one, actually, no, before I even tell you the first one, I'd like to first apologize because there is going to be some curse words. So I'm very sorry, and I don't mean to offend anybody. So the first passage is on page 22, and it's part 1, chapter 1, and it's told from Bay's perspective. And this is when they come back from the farm after slaughtering sheep. So upstairs, I take Shabnam's sweater off and throw it on her bed. The air is suffocating. Mental institutions look more inviting than our room. Modar has tidied it, which means she's taken down all of my love poems and sketches of Mr. Harvey and hidden them under my bed, like she does whenever we have company. Now our room is no different from the other rooms in the house. Aside from the nazaz and the praying timetable, all walls are bare. I open the window to let the stink of toxic chemicals out. Aleph is still in the backyard, playing marbles with Ryan and Terry, freckle-faced twin brothers who live across the street. With their greasy complexions and freckles splattered all over their faces, they look like pepperoni cheese pizzas. With a wooden stick, Aleph traces a circle on the ground. You go past the circle and you're out. He then digs a hole in the center of the circle and says, the rules are simple. Whoever gets their marble in the circle wins and is the first to play the next game. He looks over at Terry, wanting to weed out the weak. You go first, Aleph says. Terry shoots his marble too fast, which rolls out of the circle. You're next, Aleph tells Ryan. Ryan shoots his marble too slow, which stops a few inches away from the hole. Finally, Aleph shoots his marble. It lands right into the hole. Fuck that, you cheated, Terry says. Fuck you, Aleph says. You want to cry like a little bitch? Then take your marble and fuck off. Aleph takes more marbles out of his tin can, which he keeps buried in the backyard close to the apple tree. In a straight line, he spaces out 15 marbles. Again, whoever goes past the circle is out, he says. He takes his lucky marble out and shoots for the shiny blue marble in the middle. They take turns. If played with skilled players, the game can take up to hours. But because Aleph is playing against a bunch of losers, it ends quickly. One by one, Aleph shoots his marbles out of the circle. I won. I get to keep your marbles, Aleph says. What do you mean you get to keep them? Ryan asks. I shot all 15 out of the circle, so they're mine. Go fuck yourself. You only keep the marbles you shoot out of the circle, Ryan says. You don't even know how to play, Terry adds. When he gets mad, he looks constipated. You both go fuck yourselves. I was playing marbles in my mother's stomach, way before you were a fucking sperm in your daddy's balls, Aleph says. This is in Afghanistan. That's not how we play it here, Terry replies. My marbles, my rules, Aleph says. A laugh from next door diverts Aleph's attention. The laugh is coming from Jonathan, Aleph's archenemy. Jonathan scrunches his face, looking like a yeast infection. What you laughing at? Aleph yells. Jonathan is always sitting on the back porch step, staring off into the distance. It's been years since he's moved next door into Mr. and Mrs. O'Connor's foster home, and no one has heard him say one single word. Some say his parents traded him for a can of beer and that he's a result of booze and prescribed drugs. Others say he was dropped on the head way too many times as a child. I say he ran away from juvie. I bet his real name isn't even Jonathan. You deaf? What you laughing at? Aleph yells. Again, no answer. That's what I thought. Just as Aleph is about to pocket Ryan's and Terry's marbles, Maudad catches him. He hurriedly puts the marbles in his pocket anyway. Maudad, with Shabnam slowly walking behind her, brings a large plastic container filled with animal parts and places it down on the yellow trimmed grass. She's hard as nails. Her arms are designed for this, for she's done it countless times before. Suddenly, straight out of an animal rights horror film, a sheep head falls out and lands right in front of Shabnam's feet. Maudad picks the head up and throws it in the air before catching it. Jokingly, she says, in Afghanistan, we'd use the head of animals to play marbles. Want to give it a try? Terry's and Ryan's jaws drop. They run off in fear. Maudad lets out a laugh as Aleph covers his face from humiliation. Put the tushlas away or I'll call your padar, Maudad demands. Bachahoy bozingar play tushla. Bachahoy bozingar are child molesting men that force young boys to dance for their pleasure. Shabnam rolls her eyes at Maudad. Again, Jonathan laughs. He heads inside as he sees Aleph rush over to the fence. Lucky for him, Maudad stops Aleph. Go pick some apples from the tree, she says. Then pointing to the sheep's head, she tells Shabnam, pick it up. Shabnam doesn't respond. You're going to have to touch it sometime. Again, no response. She stares at the head, looking saddened by the fact that it once belonged to a living creature. And the second passage is on page 103, and this is part 2, chapter 8, and it's told from Shabnam's perspective. And in this chapter, it's just right after they're throwing an invitation to honor Aleph's circumcision. Okay, so page 103. Maudad signals me to the kitchen to serve tea. Now that she needs my help, she's ready to talk to me. I stick my head out of the kitchen window to catch a whiff of fresh air. Get your head out of there and serve the tea before it gets cold, Maudad tells me. She fills each ceramic teacup to the brim before placing it on the newly purchased tea tray. Not once does she spill a drop of tea. Serve this, more's coming, and don't forget to take the apples. Aleph was up early picking the finest ones, she says. Our backyard consists of a dozen fruit trees, yet it's the apple tree she takes great pride in. As tea is being served, music blares out of the speakers. Now that Aleph is gone, the women make themselves comfortable by taking their headscarves off. They look different, with their hair curled and their ears, necks, and wrists covered in jewelry. They've also retouched their makeup and applied more perfume, for the tang is overpowering. My eyes dry and my nose begins to itch, sensitive to the different scents. It fucking reeks in here, Faye says. The women take turns dancing and playing man and koi wife. Some twirl around, some dance bandari, some dance in ways inauthentic, and some dance like newcomers to Canada. Once the women dance themselves to exhaustion, Mother grabs a large plastic bowl from the kitchen drawer and sings a traditional song called Shokoko Jan. Based on a beautiful Kandahari woman named Shokoko, the song is about her being desired for her pearly white teeth, jet black eyes, and big house. Suddenly, Bay and I notice two heads peeping through the window. Bay runs and flings the door open. The women scream and hide as their bodies are exposed. Pretending to close the door behind her, I follow her outside, knowing that it will be my only chance at getting out of this money. What the hell are you doing? Bay asks, running towards Ryan and Terry. Nothing, says Ryan. He's more scared of Bay than Terry is. Stop being a creeper or I'll send my mom after both of you, she says. She looks through the window only to learn that they were eyeing Masood's two daughters. You want me to tell them that you were jerking off to them? I laugh. That's not who we were looking at, says Terry. Aleph suddenly appears, relieving them of Bay's bullying. What are you guys doing here? He asks them. Ryan changes the subject. He asks, what's going on in there? We're throwing a party for Aleph, Bay answers. How come we're not invited? Asks Terry. Yeah, why are there only women in there? What kind of a party is this? Ryan asks. We're honoring Aleph's circumcision, Bay answers again. What's that? Ryan asks, confused. Aleph tries to cover Bay's mouth, but she pushes him away, managing to spit out a few words. It's when they slice the tip of your dick off. I laugh, again, this time louder. What? The twins ask at the same time. Is that why you didn't come to school last week? Asks Terry. For a split second, the brothers think Bay is joking, until they notice the look of distress on Aleph's face. The twins fall to the ground, dying from laughter. Me and Bay join them. You people are fucking weird, says Terry, as he lets out a snort. So where is it? Ryan asks. Where's what? Aleph asks. The tip of your dick. Aleph throws a punch at Ryan and then at Terry. I grab Aleph's arms, fearing that a bigger fight will break loose. Suddenly, we notice Jonathan coming out of the bushes. He looks at Aleph and laughs. Aleph tries to break free, but I hold his arms tighter. Hadad comes out of hiding. Party's over. Get inside, he shouts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahela. That is an incredible passage. And it is a wonderful introduction to a fascinating and intense book. And now I think we'd have David Neil Lee back. He has been, bartering with his internet provider and has managed to secure his connection again. So I'm going to turn this quickly back over to David and have him come to.
Okay, now I can't turn my camera on because the host has asked you to start. Okay, there we go. Now I can start it. Okay, we're good. Thank you, host. We're here. Great. Now, let me just check. Although the light looks the same to you, it's getting dark in here. So I'm going to read. Okay, so great. Quick introduction to my reading. It was now, I think, 10 years ago that I told Noelle I would write her a horror novel. And so I did. And a few years later, and she said, make your protagonist a teenager. So we did the Midnight Games a few years ago. And then it was a while ago. The Midnight Games came out, and I said, I'll write you a trilogy, but I actually had to first complete a PhD in English at the University of Guelph. So it wasn't that easy. So finally, book two's come out. So I'd really like to thank Noelle, Ashley, Jen, all the people who have worked on it. Rachel Rosen, who's come up with these sort of marvelously intuitive covers for them, that really show what the book's about. So I've been sort of agonizing over what to read tonight. There's a nice little self-contained flashback chapter in the book that I've already read for the Hamilton Public Library. That video's online. And then there's a nice part where Nate, who was walking into the north end of Hamilton, which is sort of a lot of deserted industrial buildings, compares them to ancient Mayan civilization. But that passage is too short. So instead of tearing my hair out over what to read, I thought yesterday, I know what I'll read. Chapter 1. So I'm reading this excerpt from chapter 1. Now, Nate had a terrible time in the Midnight Games. He's been injured. He has scars. He's recovering months later. He's in a house back with his dad and some unwanted relatives, and he's trying to figure out if his misadventures are over. One thing that happened, he's been mauled by creatures called the Hounds of Tindalos, and the scars have a certain unusual quality to them. At night, the scars come alive, tingling and throbbing. This is page 3, actually. It's right at the start of the book. I'll cut out little bits to make it shorter. At night, the scars come alive, tingling and throbbing from my right shoulder blade to my chest, and I rise from my bed and sulk around the house, reading books, shuffling through the rows of videotapes I know by heart, watching old movies online or on late-night TV, or checking for messages, there are usually none, on my new smartphone. One night, nothing seemed to help, so I got dressed and went out. Sulking, skulking, lurking, I was better off out on the street. It was a couple of weeks before Christmas. There was still no snow, but the leaves were off the trees, and gusts of wind spattered me with drizzle. A Tuesday night for garbage pickup, so everyone's green bags and blue boxes were out on the curb. I stood for a moment in our front yard and then went left toward the construction site that would become the new Prince of Wales Elementary School. We all called it POW. Beyond that was Ivor Wynn Stadium, now fenced off and dark, where the games had made a hell of a mess. At least one light tower knocked over by Yog Sothoth, sinkholes in the field, and foundations dug up by excited dritches, blood and bullet holes all over the bleachers. There'd already been a movement underway to tear down the old stadium and build a new one. So after the scandal of that final midnight game, things moved pretty fast. Ivor Wynn was quickly being reduced to mountains of fractured concrete, elephant-sized chunks with twists of rebar jutting out like fossils of Paleozoic worms. But I thought I'd head up Lottridge to Barton. Maybe if I had any money on me, grab something at McDonald's or Timmy's. The corner house on Lottridge and Somerset has a willow tree with a canopy of branches that hangs over the sidewalk. If you're tall, you have to stoop when you pass by. I don't have any problem with it. But tonight, I slowed cautiously. Something was different. Someone was under there, hunched over in the shadows next to the parked cars. I heard the rattle of plastic blue boxes and thought of Dana. He had made his living any way he could. Hourly manual labor, sidewalk retail, scavenging garbage for scrap metal or blue boxes for returnables until one night, in the basement of the derelict old POW, he'd been ripped apart by the Hounds of Tindalos, summoned by the Resurrection Church of the Ancient Gods to punish Dana for sneaking into their late-night ceremony and for bringing me with him. In the shadow of the willow tree, someone dropped a beer can onto the sidewalk. It banged like a cowbell and rolled toward me. Steely Dan Magnum. I scooped it up and saw a hand extended out of the shadow into the light. The figure looked like a woman, tall and broad at the hips and shoulders. Here you go, ma'am. As I handed it back, I saw that there was someone with her, a figure in a wheelchair. The yard wasn't fenced, and I went up onto the grass to go around the couple. Thank you, sir. Something familiar in her voice. Betrayed, said the man in the wheelchair. Stolen from me. Something in his voice creeped me out, but I didn't recognize this pair of any of the local street people I knew. Hey, you're welcome to that can, I said, and have yourself a good night. I had it all, the man said. Something in his voice. I turned around and backed toward the street corner, keeping my eyes on the pair. Now I remembered the woman was Claire, the personal aide, one might say hench person, to Rafe Thurpens, the head of the Resurrection Church of the Ancient Gods, the cult behind the Midnight Games. And the man in the wheelchair, it was the proprietor. It was Thurpens himself. Was this an ambush? The proprietor rolled closer, painfully inching forward in his manual chair, squinting at me from the shadows of the willow. This poverty and pain we live in now. Slumped in his seat, he gestured with a gloved hand. The great old ones. They'd take care of that, with me as their minister, their prime minister. Tisking and swearing under her breath, Claire came trotting after the wheelchair. She looked at me apologetically. I twigged that neither of them recognized me. Prime Minister of Canada, I said. Prime Minister of everything. He coughed, and the cough grew and shook him, and Claire leaned over to straighten him in his chair. I fidgeted, wanting to get out of there before either of them recognized me from last fall, where, for several days, we were pitted against each other, pretty much in a life or death situation. You have to excuse him, Claire said. He was in a real bad accident. That's for sure. I'd seen him get blown right off the edge of Wynn Stadium, and it was a long way to the ground. I'd been certain that he was dead, or at best, strapped to the ceiling in some hospital ICU, but here he was, still rattling around these tired old streets like the Energizer bunny in an empty bathtub. I waved a hasty good night and started to turn up Lottridge. I'll be back, Thurpens said. The stars are turning in my favor, even as we speak. That's great, I said. Have a good... Even as we speak, Thurpens said. The great old ones are mustering their powers. I tried to turn and keep walking, reminding myself he was sick and in pain, telling myself that what he said couldn't be true. To rise again. But don't listen to me, you idiot. Now Claire was shushing him, but his voice grew steadily louder. It's not just the devils or the examinators. Much more. The likes of you won't stop them. I whirled around. Actually, I said, we did stop. Nate, shut up, I told myself. The church can't do it on its own, the proprietor continued. But the cavalry's coming, the 4 horsemen of the resurrection. You just have to look. The proprietor squirmed in his chair. I cringed, ready for him to miraculously regain the use of his legs and throw himself at me, drag me to his followers to berate and torture and kill. But I knew that whether or not he still possessed that power, I had to practice not being afraid. Even as we speak. His head drooped, then he took a deep breath, rallied the remains of his energy. The stars... You mean, even as you speak, I said. You're full of crap as usual. Nate, shut up. The stars are turning in our favor, and the seas will part. Look to the west. No, they're not, I barked at him. Nate, shut up. You're full of crap as usual. The stars aren't turning in your favor. The waters won't part. You guys are dead in the water, and you're going to stay that way. Nate, shut up. Claire bent down, squinting to recognize me. Hey, the Silva kid. I got the stars to prove it, too, I said. Dana dead in an abandoned school basement, the horrors in the stadium, the dritch, the hounds, the buzz in my head as Yog Sothoth, the great old one, second only to Cthulhu himself, seeped like a bloodstain out of the night sky, calling to those assembled to go down on their knees to obey. I didn't need to shake up these memories. There was something in the air, something that Thurpens' rant had summoned. I could feel my scars itching and throbbing. Now a light went on in the proprietor's brain. He leaned forward and squinted at me. You're just another pawn, a pawn of the old ways of thinking. Old ways? Old man, I mocked. The proprietor, I figured, was at least 40. You're still a flunky for some tentacled alien slime bag. Doesn't give a damn for you, anything, anyone else on this planet. It's already happening, the proprietor said. The great old ones will triumph. Cthulhu will rise again from his ancient city at the heart of the world, and so will I. I will rise again. Gotta go, I said to Claire. Spin a slice. I turned and kept walking. determined not to run, as behind me, despite Claire's efforts, the man who had been the proprietor began to shout, "Go ahead, you moron! Strut and boast and think that this planet is yours to own. Something in the west is rising. Something is coming out of the west. The stars are turning and turning and turning in our favor. Something will be here before you know it. Everything we lost will be gained again when our Savior comes from the west. When our salvation comes from the west. You can defy us now. Go ahead, but look to the west." His voice echoed off the wall of the new POW. Last fall, not 30 meters from where we stood, the hounds of Tindalos had found my friend Dana and decapitated him. Killed him at the bidding of this man, the proprietor, but I was putting all that behind me. I had to. I kept walking. "Look to the west," he shouted after me. "Look to the west. Something is coming." Okay.
Thank you very much, David. So we've now heard from two writers of novels that have something to do with monsters and monstrosity. Of course, Ryla Nayebzadah's novel Monster Child has the theme right in the title, and David Neil Lee's novel The Medusa Deep continues the playground he set up that reimagines the Cthulhu mythos in our own backyard in Hamilton. And the idea of monsters and monstrosity always come hand in hand with the idea of the hero. And our next author tonight will introduce us to the other side of that coin in her short story collection, Radium Girl, the title of which is the name of a hero that Sofi can tell us more about. So here to read from Radium Girl is Sofi Papamarko.
Am I here? Here I am. Hi, everybody. Before I start, I just want to thank everyone at Wolsak and Wynn. This is my dream come true, really. And you're a dreamy publisher to work with. I couldn't have had a better experience. Thank you so much. I also want to thank my mom for giving me my pandemic haircut. It's pretty cute. I'm happy with it. Speaking of monsters and heroes, I decided to read an excerpt from not the title story, but actually from a story called Something to Cry About, because it's about being confined to a space for an extended period of time. I think that's something that we can all relate to in 2021. So to set it up, it's a family of 4. There are 2 kids, and the protagonist is Marcus, who's 11, and that's who's speaking, with little snippets from a nuclear pamphlet produced by the government of Canada in 1980. Plan today for what you would have to do in order to survive a nuclear attack. The plans you make could also ensure survival of you and your family in the event of a local natural emergency. There is a checklist at the end of this pamphlet to help you plan logically. Down here in Subterranea, I have counted 56 cans of creamed corn, 40 cans of corned beef, 27 cans each of kidney beans, whole new potatoes, string beans, butter beans, baked beans, canned peaches, and tomato soup. Oh, and 72 tins of sardines packed in oil. There are 17 tins of juice, 6 apple, 6 grapefruit, 1 orange, 4 tomato. There are 12 boxes of cereal. 6 are Cheerios, 4 are Shreddies, 2 are shredded wheat. I hate shredded wheat. It tastes like cardboard. No, I've never actually eaten cardboard, but I've eaten shredded wheat, so I know what I'm talking about. There are also 11 boxes of instant rice, 13 bottles of red wine, 12 tins of... Marcus, that's enough, says Dad. But I'm taking inventory of our food. Why don't you do something else, says Dad. There are 225 emergency candles in 45 packages of 5, 4 gas masks, 300-liter water storage tanks. I have previously counted and noted 64 rolls of single-ply toilet paper, a box of 100 blue nitrile surgical gloves, 2 first aid kits, 5 flashlights, 1 box of flares, 5 boxes of Strike Anywhere matches, 6 blankets, 10 rolls of duct tape, 4 packages of moist towelettes, 3 fire extinguishers, 2 cans of kerosene, 1 bungee cord, and a partridge in a pear tree, says Ginny. She flicks a pink snap beret at my head. Marcus, says Dad, a little louder than last time. What? I already told you, son. Do something else. But I am, I say. I'm taking inventory of the non-food items now. Holy smokes, Marcus, says Ginny. Can't you shut up for even like 5 minutes? I'm simply counting, I breathe. There are miniature nuclear explosions in my brain, followed everywhere. I feel poisoned. I feel poisonous. Ginny, don't tell your brother to shut up, says Mom from the cot in the corner. Leave Marcus alone, Jim. He finds numbers smoothing. Mom is wearing her old pink bathrobe and drinking out of a mug that says, thank God it's Friday. Her mouth is the color of Welch's grape juice. Jesus Christ, Donna, says Dad. It's not even noon yet. It's noon somewhere, sings Mom, over the rainbow. I can too shut up for 5 minutes, I say. I start counting to 300 in my head. That's 60 seconds times 5, which is 5 minutes. 8, 9, 10. What in the hell does it matter anymore what time it is? Mom's voice is loud and she sounds like she's about to cry. What in the hell does anything matter? Mom stands and drops the mug she's holding, maybe by accident, but also maybe not. It shatters and I smell the sour smell of definitely not grape juice. I'll have to count the pieces later before Mom cleans it up, which she will. Maybe she'll do that tomorrow. She will clean it up when she's feeling less upset because nobody else will. It's a mother's job to clean things. Everyone knows that. 39, 40. Almost 1 whole minute of me shutting up. Dad has grabbed Mom by the shoulders and is shaking her. Mom is really crying now. I love my little mommy. She used to sing me lullabies and is such a nice singer. She used to act in musicals, did you know that? She always played the biggest and best roles because she's so pretty and such a nice singer. Maria in West Side Story, Kim in Bye Bye Birdie, Julie in Carousel. She showed me all the playbills once. She acted in them before I was born. Mom is really so beautiful, even when there are bruises on her face and even when she cries. Don't cry. Don't cry. Hold it together. Be a man. 47, 48. Whether you choose to evacuate or take shelter locally, you should have a roadmap with you. You can then relate the information about areas under fallout, which you would hear about on the radio, to your actual location. Toys, games, books for your children would help to occupy their time. Your battery-operated radio will keep you in contact with the outside world. Jeannie's iron has landed on my hotel on Baltic Avenue. 450 buckaroonies, I tell her. Pay up, miss. Ooh, I'm shaking in my boots, says Ginny. Whatever, Marcus. It's only stupid Baltic Avenue anyway. It's the most welfare property ever. Pay up, please, I say. Ginny makes a farting noise with her mouth and counts out a rainbow of Monopoly money. There, she says. Happy? I nod and twirl the ends of my pretend millionaire's mustache. Ginny makes another farting noise and flips over the Monopoly board. Hey! I feel every drop of blood in my face drain into my belly. Gross, there was a centipede on it, Ginny says. Guess we have to start all over again. But I was winning, I start to cry. Oh, grow up, you big baby. I don't play games with babies. Ginny walks away and opens up an Archie comic book. Mom and Dad aren't yelling at us because they aren't paying attention to us. They're talking in low voices. I can hear them in bits and pieces between sniffles. My mother, says Mom. There's no way she could have. It's gone now. Everything. Not all bad. How could you say that? I guess your good friend Richard is gone too. Dad's voice is louder now and shaky. Dad never shakes. Dad never wavers, quavers. Won't be bumping into him at the grocery store anytime soon, will you? Going over for a morning coffee to chat and all that. There is quiet for a while. I told you, Mom says. It was already over, already done. Like I'm supposed to believe that, Dad says. Once a lying bitch, always a lying bitch. Mom goes to the washroom and slams the door shut. I hear the lock click, even though Dad tells us we're not supposed to lock the door in case of an emergency. Dad wanders over to the corner of the room where he keeps a transistor radio. He moves the dials back and forth dramatically while looking at us. He does this every single day, like singing the national anthem or saying the Lord's Prayer. I never hear anything coming out of that radio, not even static. Persons who become emotionally disturbed following a disaster should be treated calmly but firmly. They should be kept in small groups, preferably with people they know. They should be encouraged to talk out their problem. If they are not otherwise injured, they should be given something to do. It may be necessary to enlist the aid of another calm person to help restrain the overexcited person. If a stunned or dazed reaction persists for over 6 to 8 hours, they should be reported to a doctor or nurse immediately when one becomes available. Jeannie cried and screamed a lot for the first 48 hours or so in Subterranea. She was worried about Grandma and her best friend Carol. Were they dead? Was everyone dead? What if everybody we knew was dead or dying? How could we not go find them and help them? Would she still get to go to high school in September? What if all the teachers had already dropped dead from radiation poisoning? Would she never get to be in a high school musical? I cut my hands against my ears to try to block out all the noise. I tried to focus on the sounds of the ocean in my hands, but Ginny would not stop crying and she would not stop screaming. She even tried to open the door to the main part of the house, but Dad wrestled her to the ground. "You do not endanger your life like that," Dad screamed into her ear. She yelped. "Do you hear me? Do you understand? You do not endanger our lives like that." Then Ginny quieted down and Dad got all quiet and gentle while still pinning her arms and legs. "Baby, we are safe here. This is a safe, private fortress just for us. For you, your brother, your mother, and me. No bad guys are getting in and nobody is getting out. Do you hear me? Do you understand? Tell me you understand." That's when Ginny exploded into bloody murder screaming, which is not very fun, believe me. Murder, bloody murder screaming. I never want to hear that sound coming out of my sister or anybody else again. Dad put his hand over her mouth, but that only made things worse. She gnashed and bit and howled like a trapped animal. Then I heard someone else start crying, a little kid. I didn't realize it was me until I put my hands to my face and felt the tears. "Keep that up," Dad glared at me, "and I'll give you something to cry about." Ginny kept screaming. That's when Dad slapped Ginny's face, hard. Ginny went all quiet and Mom started to sob. I shut my eyes and tried to think of something new to count. "Okay, but don't worry, I found something." It was the seconds between Mom's sobs. I counted longer and longer between each time, just like with the pauses between lightning and thunder during a storm as it passes us over, and the thunder sounds get further apart from the lightning, and you can finally fall asleep. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. That was wonderful. So we've now heard from all three of our fiction titles tonight. We've heard from Monster Child by Ryla Nayebzadah. We've heard from The Medusa Deep by David Neil Lee, and just now, from Radium Girl by Sofi Papamarko. And I'm so happy that we're able to present these wonderful books to you this evening. I want to remind everyone that our launch special is in effect until this Saturday at midnight, and all of these titles are 30% off when you purchase them from the Wolsak and Wynn website. And the information is just coming up again in the online chat. But come to our website, wolsakandwynn.ca, and all the titles we're launching tonight will be 30% off until this Saturday at midnight. So that's it. We have magic of all different kinds. We have the magic of the great old gods rumbling up from the center of the earth. We have the mysterious magic of trying to figure out who you are and where you belong in a world when you're a girl who cries tears of blood in Monster Child. And we have the magic of and wonder of science and all the wonderful ways with which Sofi Papamarko twists the expectations we have of so many popular science fiction genres in Radium Girl. Three wonderful books that we know you're going to enjoy. And we want to thank everyone who's here tonight. And for those of you who couldn't make it here tonight, this reading and this launch are being recorded so that you can watch it in the future. So from those of us in the past to those of you in the future who are watching it now, is it now or is it then? Thank you for coming back and checking this out at a later date. And I hope you didn't miss the 30% discount that's going on until this Saturday at midnight. Once again, my name is Paul Vermeersch. And for Noelle Allen and everyone at Wolsak and Wynn Publishers, and for our three authors tonight, I want to thank you again for being here, and we'll see you next time.